destroy the entire fleet.
I remember very clearly the first time I saw Battlestar Galactica burst out of the TV screen. Viper fighters roaring, laser fire tearing across space, and the red eye of a Cylon sweeping through the darkness like a warning. I sat there, in front of the large, boxy television in the living room, completely convinced that somewhere out there, among the stars, humanity was truly running for its life. But it turns out nothing was as glamorous as those images suggested. Years later, when time pulled me away from the sofa of my childhood, I realized something else. Battlestar Galactica was never just a piece of entertainment. Did you know that the spectacular opening episode was actually constructed like a theatrical film to rescue a massive financial bill? Or that a real-world historical moment cut straight through its premiere, leaving millions of viewers stunned? And if I told you that behind the warships and laser beams were religious influences, carefully encoded to the point that most viewers never noticed them, would you still see Battlestar Galactica as a pure space adventure? Now, let's step into the first truth. 17, the most expensive pilot episode in television history. When Universal greenlit Saga of a Star World, they did not treat it as a conventional television episode. From the outset, it was conceived with a cinematic mindset, large-scale staging, theatrical-style production design, and a staggering budget. The cost reached $7 million in 1978, an unprecedented figure for television at the time, when most prime-time series episodes cost only a few $100,000. Universal suddenly realized they were holding a financial bomb that the traditional television model would struggle to recoup, and they chose a move no one had dared to try. Instead of waiting for its broadcast on ABC, Universal re-edited the pilot into a theatrical film and quietly released it in Canada, Europe, and several international markets. The result exceeded all expectations, more than $40 million in global revenue, turning a dangerous financial gamble into a spectacular rescue. Battlestar Galactica became an international phenomenon before it ever aired on American television. 16. When science fiction collided head-on with world history. When Battlestar Galactica first aired on television, that night many families sat down on their sofas with one clear expectation: to watch Battlestar Galactica open up a new universe. No one was prepared for the broadcast to be interrupted midstream. As Saga of a Star World was unfolding a space epic of warships, Cylon robots, and humanity on the brink of extinction, the screen suddenly cut to the White House. President Jimmy Carter appeared with breaking news. The Camp David peace accords between Egypt and Israel had just been signed. For ABC, this was a national obligation. For viewers, it was an abrupt slam on the brakes. Many thought they had accidentally changed the channel. Others assumed the program had been cut due to a broadcast error. Only afterward did they realize they had just witnessed history intruding into science fiction. The consequence was that ABC was forced to rebroadcast the entire pilot in another time slot. Ironically, this interruption made Battlestar Galactica even more memorable. It was not just a grand television premiere, it became the night of television no one could forget. 15. The Cylons as symbols of AI fear before the term became common. Remember the first time you saw a Cylon Centurion step into view? The cold metallic armor, the red eye sweeping back and forth like a security scanner. Without any lengthy dialogue, you immediately understood it. This thing had no emotion, no hesitation, and it would not stop. That was the very core of the fear that Battlestar Galactica tapped into at a very early stage. Many years before the concept of AI became a global topic of public discussion. When the series premiered in 1978, the Cylons were not just robot villains. According to creator Glenn A. Larson in interviews and Universal's behind-the-scenes documents, they were designed as the inevitable consequence of humans creating artificial intelligence for warfare and then losing control of it. This was a distinctly 1970s anxiety. Cold machines, pure logic, no morality or compassion, only objectives. What is notable is that the show never called them AI, machine learning, or computer intelligence. But all the signs were there. The Cylons think algorithmically, make collective decisions, and treat human life as a variable that can simply be eliminated. 14. One actor played two completely different characters. Can you guess who? This is a detail you might have missed. The same actor took on two major roles in Battlestar Galactica. It was Patrick Mcnee, a veteran British actor who effectively doubled his presence in the series. He both provided the voice of the cold, imperious leader of the Cylons and appeared on screen as the sinister Count Iblis. Yes, the same person. You probably remember Count Iblis, the glowing red eyes, the whispering, hypnotic voice, and the constant sense of danger whenever he appeared. This character did not rely on violence. He manipulated through words and belief. What fewer people realise is that Mcnee was also the voice behind the Cylons' imperious leader. You rarely see his face, only a metallic throne and cold red light. But that echoing voice, it was Mcnee. Some fans have even speculated that this was not entirely accidental, as if the series were hinting at a shadowy connection between Iblis and the Cylons. Whether coincidence or intention, having one actor portray two dark forces makes rewatching the series far more unsettling. 13. The Cylons were originally aliens. Most fans know the Cylons as evil robots with shiny armor and scanning red eyes, but originally they were not robots at all. They were living alien beings wearing battle armor. Early versions of the Battlestar Galactica story portrayed the Cylons as a genuine alien species, encased in metallic suits for combat. In the theatrical version of the pilot, there is even a brief moment that reveals a reptilian-looking face beneath a Cylon helmet. However, when the show moved to television, the creators changed direction. The network and censorship authorities were concerned that showing living beings being shot and killed every week would be too violent for younger viewers. The solution was to turn the Cylons into fully robotic entities. This change not only allowed the show to pass censorship, but also reshaped the entire Battlestar Galactica universe. Humans were no longer fighting an alien race, but cold, soulless machines. That decision carried through every later version of the franchise. 12. Galactica used real tanks, not futuristic props. Do you remember the scenes where colonial forces landed on icy planets, tracks grinding through snow, cold exhaust billowing behind each turn? Those were not space vehicles imagined on a drawing board. They were real military vehicles. In the original Battlestar Galactica, the crew did not fight only in space with Vipers and lasers. When operating on the ground, they used vehicles like the Landram and Snowram, which were, in reality, tracked military vehicles modified with extra panels, new paint, and fake technological details to make them look more futuristic. The reason was simple: budget. Repurposing existing military vehicles was far cheaper than building entirely new ones. Surprisingly, it worked extremely well on screen. Those heavy, slow-moving machines made Galactica feel more grounded, more like a displaced military fleet than a sleek, polished science fiction fantasy. 11. Baltar was supposed to die in the very first episode. If you only watched the television version of Battlestar Galactica, you know Baltar as the main traitor who constantly causes trouble for the fleet. But here is a strange twist. In the original version of the story, he was meant to die in the very first episode. In the theatrical release of the pilot saga of A Star World, the Cylons actually execute Baltar. They use him to betray humanity, then cut off his head after deciding he is no longer useful. His death is staged coldly and decisively, leaving no room for redemption. That was supposed to be the end of his story. However, when ABC decided to turn the pilot into a weekly television series, they chose to keep Baltar alive. They needed a recurring villain. Baltar provided ongoing dramatic tension and gave the heroes a concrete adversary rather than having them fight only faceless robots. A flesh and blood traitor is always more frightening than an army of machines. 10. Sometimes the actors had to read their lines from cue cards. Producing a weekly science fiction series in the late 1970s was not easy. With Battlestar Galactica, the pressure was even greater. The production jumped almost immediately from a cinematic-style pilot into a full weekly broadcast schedule. The writers did not have enough time to write, revise, and polish scripts at a normal television pace. As a result, there were shooting days when dialogue did not exist until just before the cameras rolled. The only solution was cue cards. Lines were written in a rush, printed out, and taped all over the set. Behind control panels, next to cockpits, on walls, and even hidden inside handheld props. The actors performed while glancing at the cards, trying to keep their delivery as natural as possible. If you watch closely, you can spot moments where the rhythm feels slightly off, or a line sounds stiffer than usual. That was not the actors' fault. They were simply doing the best they could with what they had. Even with frequent behind-the-scenes chaos, that improvisation helped Battlestar Galactica survive and complete a full season on the air. 9. A Battlestar Galactica toy caused a child's death. One of the darkest aspects associated with Battlestar Galactica had nothing to do with the show itself, but with its toys. In 1978, Mattel released a line of action figures and spacecraft based on the series. One of the most popular items was the Colonial Viper toy, which could fire small plastic missiles. Tragically, one of those projectiles became deadly. A child accidentally swallowed a spring-loaded missile, and it led to his death. Another child was seriously injured in a separate incident. The news shocked parents and toy manufacturers everywhere. As a result, Mattel was forced to recall the product and redesign it. Later versions no longer had the firing missile feature. This incident did not only affect Battlestar Galactica toys. It changed the entire toy industry. New safety standards were introduced to ensure that projectile-firing toys could not cause harm again. 8. The show used its own strange time system.
Probably from that base ship we eluded 10 centaurs ago.
Battlestar Galactica did not just create new worlds, it also created its own way of measuring time. Instead of hours, minutes, or years as on Earth, the show used completely fictional terms such as yarn, centin, and micron. A yarn was equivalent to a year. A centin was roughly like a minute. A micron was even shorter, closer to a second. Because of this, you often hear characters say things like, "We only have 5 centins to withdraw." If you were watching for the first time, it was easy to pause for a moment just to mentally calculate how fast or slow they were actually talking about. For that reason, while watching the show, you sometimes feel as if you are truly inside a completely different civilization. 7. The show was filled with Mormon belief elements. You might not notice it right away, but Battlestar Galactica is built on many hidden religious ideas, and most of them come directly from Mormon beliefs. This was not accidental, because the show's creator, Glenn A. Larson, was a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, LDS, commonly known as the Mormon Church. The clearest example is the story of the 13th tribe of humanity, those who left the planet Kobol in search of Earth. In Mormon theology, there is also the idea of a lost tribe and a planet called Kolob, considered to be near God. The similarity is hard to ignore. There is also the Council of 12, a leadership structure that directly mirrors the LDS Church. Even the way characters talk about gods, prophecy, and destiny carries a very distinct religious tone. 6. Some Battlestars existed only in dialogue in Battlestar Galactica. Galactica was not the only warship in that universe. It was just one vessel in an entire fleet, with many other ships mentioned by name such as Columbia, Pacific, Rykon, and Triton. The strange thing is that audiences never actually saw any of them. No models, no designs, only brief mentions in dialogue. Some were said to have been destroyed during the initial Cylon attack, while others simply disappeared from the story. Internal production documents even listed additional Battlestars that never appeared on screen or were mentioned in dialogue, including one called Prometheus. These names helped make the universe feel larger, even though budget and time did not allow them to be shown. As a result, an invisible fleet always existed behind Galactica, a small detail, but one that has kept lore-loving fans curious for decades. 5. Star Wars almost took them to court. Have you ever watched fighters racing through space, red and blue laser beams crossing, cameras sweeping close to ship hulls, and felt unsure whether you were watching Star Wars or Battlestar Galactica? If so, that feeling was not unfounded. Not long after Battlestar Galactica aired, Lucasfilm became angry. They believed the series had borrowed too much from Star Wars, from visual style to conceptual structure. And to be fair, the similarities were not accidental. Many effects artists who had worked on Star Wars moved on to Galactica, bringing with them both experience and technology, especially the motion control camera systems used to film space battles. Lucasfilm later filed a lawsuit against Universal Studios, accusing Galactica of copying more than 30 elements from Star Wars, including robots, enemy designs, the opening crawl, and even the concept of an evil force dominating the galaxy. The legal battle dragged on and attracted attention, but it ultimately did not result in a decisive judgment. The lawsuit was dropped, and neither side emerged as a clear winner. 4. The show gave birth to an entire franchise. Today, many people forget that Battlestar Galactica 1978 lasted only one season with just 24 episodes. But that did not stop it from becoming the seed of a franchise that lasted for decades. Immediately after the series ended, Universal tried to keep the flame alive with Galactica 1980, a strange turn that brought the story to Earth. Although it was not successful, it prevented the Galactica name from disappearing. From there, the franchise expanded into comic books, novels, toys, model kits, and other spin-off products. The real turning point came in the early 2000s, when a darker, more mature reboot premiered on the Sci-Fi Channel, won awards, and attracted a new generation of viewers. With only a short original run, the 1978 series laid the foundation for everything that followed. 3. Battlestar Galactica fought another battle. ABC scheduled the series directly against All in the Family, one of the biggest rating monsters on American television at the time. For a brand new science fiction show, heavy on special effects and extremely expensive, that was almost a death sentence. Ratings swung wildly from week to week, and with such massive investment, every drop became a potentially fatal blow. Glenn Larson later said that ABC claimed it would give the show time to build an audience, but he suspected the network already wanted to clear the time slot for the rising sitcom Mork and Mindy. Locking Galactica into a death slot made replacing it much easier. Whether it was deliberate calculation or simply poor strategy, fans agree on one thing: the show was never given a fair chance. 2. Battlestar Galactica threw viewers straight into a culture that was not Earth's. From the very first episode, Battlestar Galactica did not gently introduce its world. It threw the audience into the middle of an alien civilization, ancient, unfamiliar, and completely separate from Earth. There was no exposition. Characters spoke in their own units of time, counted down in centons and microns, and raised glasses in rituals that were never translated. Unlike many science fiction shows of the era that used strange terminology simply for flavour, Galactica built those elements as the foundation of a real society. Even the Cylons were not just faceless robots. Beneath the metal armour was a clear power structure, blending ancient religious authority with totalitarian rule. The show did not explain it, but everything operated with internal consistency. The original Cylon costume was beautiful, but almost impossible to film. The Cylon armour, with its shiny chrome plating, looked extremely striking on screen, but it was a nightmare for the production crew. Its reflective surface clearly mirrored everything around it: studio lights, cameras, boom microphones, even crew members standing several meters away. With lighting pushed even slightly too far, the entire set would appear reflected on the armor. To deal with this, the crew were forced to change their filming approach. They used darker, harsher lighting and kept the Cylons mostly in shadow. As a result, Cylons rarely appeared fully lit or clearly visible. Instead, audiences usually saw metallic figures emerging from darkness, accompanied by the cold red sweep of the electronic eye. This was not the original intention. It was a technical solution. Ironically, that limitation created an iconic image. The Cylons became more frightening because they were less exposed, like predatory machines lurking in the dark. So what about you? Which moment from Battlestar Galactica is the one you remember most? Leave a comment, and if you want to continue unlocking other deleted scenes from Hollywood's golden age, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. You may be surprised by what Hollywood has kept hidden from you for decades.